Right, let's look at a couple of examples from some prominent publications. This first one has to do with fuel economy, the miles per gallon that a vehicle gets. This graph is from the New York Times, and it claims to show the mandated fuel economy standards set by the US Department of Transportation. So that standard required an increase in mileage from 18 miles per gallon to 27.5. So if I look at this graph, they've decided to make this graph on a roadway, which is kind of cute and eye-catching, driving off into the distance. So I would expect that the future is off in the distance, but instead they've put the 18 miles per gallon, which is the present, all the way in the back. And in the foreground, they put what the new standard is, the goal that we're heading towards, is 27.5%. So that's a little bit odd in that the graph is coming to you, but somehow you represent the future. So that seems a little bit off. Let's see if the numbers themselves actually pan out. So mathematically speaking, a change from 18 miles per gallon to 27.5 is an increase of about 53%. So let's see. Let me color these in for you so you can see them a little more clearly. So there is that 18 miles per gallon in red. And then up here in the foreground, we have the 27.5 miles per gallon in green. So then the question is, does this green one look about 53% bigger than the red one? And I'd say, no, it looks a whole lot bigger than the red one. And in fact, it's 783% bigger than the red one. So that's a huge difference. And this graph ends up having a lie factor of about 15. So it's off by a factor of 15 here, which is pretty significant. Okay. All right, this next one is called the shrinking family doctor. And this is actually, I'm glad to see that this graph was done because the idea itself is really important to convey. There is an issue where there are not as many people going into family medicine as going into specialties. And so it's a lot harder to find a family doctor. And so making sure that people know that and maybe coming up with some strategies to make family medicine more attractive are going to be needed. Right. So their intent was good. But the way that they carried it out just did not work. So they chose to use doctors instead of bars. Okay. And they didn't line them all across at the bottom at the same place. So it's really hard to compare the height of the bar when the base of the bars are not evenly set across the bottom. Okay, so we've got that issue going on. We also have an issue where they just took the graphic itself and they shrunk or blew it up by a certain percentage. And so when you do that, it changes not only the height, but also the width of the base of the bar. So I drew some squares around here so you can kind of see what my eye looks at when I'm looking at this kind of a graph. And I can see that the base of those bars is changing. And so that makes it really hard to compare the area of these bars. Okay, so a more accurate graph, although more boring, but a more accurate graph would look like this. And this is a lot easier to see exactly what that difference is. So we have a lie factor here of just about 3. So it's almost off by a factor of 3 the way that they've drawn this. All right, so come back on the next video and we'll look at yet another way that the area principle distorts and another example from a popular publication.